Daniel, good to have you on the program with us. Nigerian representatives were not invited to that U.S.-organized United Nations meeting over the situation in your country. What are your thoughts on that? Why was Nigeria excluded?
Well, first of all, I'm not aware of that. But if this is true, then that is sadly not supposed to be the path to resolving problem, because I think it's consistent with the principles of natural justice that there is fair hearing. This is also consistent with what happened in the United States Congress, I think about 2-3 days ago, when they had the public hearing, or rather the congressional hearing on the matter. They have invited witnesses and a couple of others, but the Nigerian government and the Nigerian officials were not invited to tell their part of the story. And so, though it is uncomfortable for us, but we welcome the idea that the U.S. has since moved away from the threat of military invasion to talking about collaboration, because as a government we have demonstrated sufficiently our intention, our resolve in dealing with terrorism, and also our welcoming of partnership, as it were, that would deepen collaboration in this regard. Yesterday, the National Security Advisor of Nigeria had a meeting with the Secretary Pet Hegseth, which is Secretary of War, and we believe that in the coming days, some of those details are going to come out. But we have made progress since the last time when the threat was issued. We have been having direct contact with the U.S. government, and we're making it clear to them that the Nigerian government is needed in all of this engagement. Just the same way you see in what is it called, that's happening between Russia and Ukraine. The way they are managing the situation. So we believe that they will give us equal opportunity in this instance to be a part of this process. And I'm happy with the development as well, that there will be a summit in Nigeria on counterterrorism.
It's encouraging to hear that progress is being made. In terms of this UN meeting over the situation in Nigeria, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was asked about the Nigerian delegation being excluded and denied knowledge of that. Do you accept that explanation, though? I mean, how do you think an oversight like that could happen?
Well, if in fact he was not aware that a meeting of such was called, then it is fine for him to say he doesn't know about it, because quite frankly, I am also not aware that there was a meeting to discuss Nigeria, which Nigeria was not a part of. But I won't be surprised if there was. Why? Because right now in America, there was a congressional hearing in which Nigeria was not invited. But instead of exacerbating the problem, when we look at the areas of agreement, so we can deepen on that and find solution. Because if you are going to be about blame fixing, I'm sure there will be a lot of blame to go around.
Rapper Nicki Minaj, though, was invited to this meeting, and she echoed the American claims that Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. Why is Minaj, she's a foreign celebrity who's not even from Nigeria, why do you think she's been considered an authority on this?
I think all Americans are aware that Nicki Minaj has a declining profile and an importance in the music industry. So that to her is a good opportunity for her to revive her music career and reinvent herself. She has never, I'm not sure if she has ever been to Nigeria, and she has ever been in Nigeria long enough to know the intricacies of Nigeria's problem. But I think that the idea of Nicki being there is just to bring about the public profile. I mean, I don't know the right word to use, but it's just for the optics. It is not necessarily because Nicki Minaj, quite frankly, offer any solution. But you can see that even the Pope, His Holiness the Pope, about 2 days ago, when he was answering questions from the media, he re-echoed the same sentiment of Nigeria, that the situation in Nigeria is not a genocide against Christians. It is indiscriminate killings by terrorists, insurgents, bandits, and their ancillaries against the citizens of Nigeria, which very sadly, Christians are also part of the people that are affected. If you like we said before, and where it bears repeating, all of the reports of all multinational organizations that have given account of the crisis in Nigeria, not a single one has said that there is a genocide of Christians. The only report that the congressmen, Ted Cruz and Ralemo, began building on was a report by an apologist of a separatist movement in Nigeria, who sadly created the scenario that we're all seeing. But the good thing for us is that the global consensus around the point of Nigeria, that we do recognize there is a problem. We do recognize our people are being killed. We do recognize that even the Christians are suffering very hardly. But what we reject is the notion that it is a targeted killing against the Christians alone, because there are Muslims who are being killed. There are people who have not identified as Christians or Muslims who are also being killed. And no government will be responsible if that government is focusing on profiling or profile anti-insurgency war. You can never succeed in that. The minute you begin to agree to profiling in this war against terrorism, then you are going to find a situation where it will deepen the problem, it will create polarization in your country, and at the end of the day, there will be nothing to show as a result. So we are happy that the global world is beginning to agree with us. I mean, the globe, members of the international community are agreeing with us that it is not a targeted killing of Christians, but it is a problem that we all recognize that exists, for which the world is called upon to be a part of this collaborative process for us to deal with it.
So can you tell us what concrete steps the Nigerian government is taking to curb attacks by these insurgents and protect civilians?
So knowing that we have limited number of military forces, we have less than 400,000 soldiers, we have less than 400,000 police, we have over 230 million population, we have porous borders, we have large landmass, ungoverned spaces, and we have foreign interests in this. Knowing the complexity of the situation, the Nigerian armed forces have decided to recruit, I think, about 19 or 20,000 people into the military force. This is one of the steps we are taking. We have expanded the scope of our fight against insurgency. Also, in our collaboration with the United States government, we are identifying specific weapons and weaponry that we need in dealing with this situation. Because if there is anything that confers America advantage over Nigeria in terms of seeing the problem, it is intelligence gathering, which helps them in knowing the polarization, the movement, and the effect of this attack. So we ask for a deeper relationship in the area of intelligence gathering, which means we might need the supply of weapons that do the work of reconnaissance. We also need expanded access to the fight, because some of the weapons we bought from the United States are restricted to be used only in the northeastern Nigeria. And you can see by recent development that this insurgency is going to the north central, going to the northwest, and even attempting to go to the southwestern Nigeria. So because of this spread of this insurgency, we will need expanded access for the use of this equipment so we can deal with it.
In terms of the tensions between Nigeria and the U.S., and again, I know you said that there is improvement in relations between the two countries, but what do you think the UN can do to help resolve the ongoing tensions that we see?
I think that the voice of the United Nations will also be helpful, especially because America is part of the UN. In fact, it is from UN that America drew the legitimacy to lead in this global fight against terrorism. What people don't realize is that unlike other cases of crime, when it comes to terrorism, it doesn't belong to one country. The fight against terrorism is a global concern. There is a global consensus that fight against terrorism is a fight that affects everyone. And that means the entire members of the United Nations are required to be a part of this process in dealing, because gradually Africa is beginning to be the haven for these terrorism activities. And therefore, I believe that the United Nations will have a lot to play in terms of bridging the gap that exists between Nigeria and the United States on some of the details of the specifics where we disagree, so that we can have once and for all a global consensus on one target, a global consensus on one approach, or global consensus on how to go about it. So we welcome the idea that United Nations is interested and is already begun the process of taking her place in this endeavor.
Donald Trump is threatening to impose sanctions and even deploy troops in Nigeria if Abuja cannot stop the killing of Christians by themselves. And thank you for clarifying that these extremists are not targeting just Christians. But what is your response to that threat by Trump?
You can see that the threat has what we call, in law, what we call an exception, right? Or a condition precedent, that if Nigeria doesn't do that, Nigeria is going to do it. Nigeria is willing to do it. Nigeria requires additional weapons, expanded cooperation in order to do it. So when the threat started, it was all about military invasion. But because they can see demonstrably the effort of Nigeria in that, we are now coming to the point of collaboration. Collaboration will mean that there will be no need for the American forces on our soil, but there will be assistance from the American government on those things that we need in order to deal with that. The reason America is successful in her anti-terrorism war is because of the assets that they have. And Nigerian soldiers have the requisite training. If you give us the asset, then we can have this result within a short period of time. So I'm happy to tell you that I do not think with the progress we are making, it will come to that point where sanction will be given. However, if America has a cogent and compelling case against any citizens of Nigeria to give sanction to them, Nigeria will be open to those possibilities if the possibilities are not politically motivated, but they are purely based on this fight against terrorism.
Why do you think Trump is so focused on the killing of Christians in particular in Nigeria when, in fact, it's other communities as well that are suffering from violence?
That is because of how the information got to him. It began, first of all, with a report from a group and an organization called Inter-Society for Civil Liberties and Human Rights. That report in itself inherently has a problem because the report projects the aspiration of a separatist movement, but that's how it began. Then that report was assimilated by some members of the US Congress, like Senator Ted Cruz, Riley Moore, Congressman Riley Moore, and others. When those ones started pushing this agenda or pushing this narrative, before you know, it got to the ears of President Trump and he took action on the basis of that. One good thing about dialogue is that it affords the opportunity for us to find out the details, even for us to substantiate or debunk the claim made in the first place. And I believe that we're coming very close to it, but that is how it began. And I'm happy that President Trump has demonstrated that he really wants to help us. We're interested in the help. But in the course of this, we are sure that some of these falsehood and fake news surrounding this situation are going to die down as we continue this deepening collaboration.
Nigeria, of course, is not the only country that Trump is threatening to put boots on the ground in. He's also attacking Venezuela with claims it's harboring drug cartels. I know Venezuela and Nigeria are far apart geographically, but do you think that these two countries are being singled out by the U.S. for other reasons, underlying political reasons?
There are lots of theories, actually. There are theories surrounding this. And some of the theories are worthy of consideration. There are theories around, okay, because there are similarities between Nigeria and Venezuela in that both of them have oil. There are also similarities in the fact that, okay, Venezuela's policy sometimes is inconsistent with the U.S. policy. Nigerians' identification with the BRICS might also irk the United States of America. There are also other theories that Nigeria's participation in the UN and taking a position against inhumane treatment in Gaza might be a factor. There are lots of theories on the ground. But we as a country, we are looking at the solution. And let me tell you something that is very vital. And that's the way we, Nigerians, view the messaging coming out of the US and out of Donald Trump. We look at it from the, we tend to leave out the rhetorics and look at the solution. An example to collaborate our point is, you remember in the event leading to the elections in New York, Donald Trump has taken a very hard stance against Mandami. In fact, at the point, he threatened that if Mandami wins, that he was going to withdraw the U.S. federal aid to New York. And the rhetoric was so heavy. Mandami, on the other hand, was also saying all sorts of things. But yesterday, they met at the White House. The resultant effect was a different thing. He was friendly with Mandami, and when he was asked if he could help Mandami, he said more than anything else, he was going to help Mandami. So sometimes, if you look at the rhetoric, you might misread the intention of Donald Trump. But if you look at the substance of the case, at the end of the day, when you have a sit-down, that will certainly going to be an understanding that will bring out a better outcome. This is the perspective and the approach that the Nigerian government is giving to the whole brouhaha.
That's an excellent point there. One last question for you. What message would you like to send to your fellow Nigerians who may be watching and possibly to policymakers in Washington and at the UN?
I will continue to appeal to the Nigerian people, especially those ones who are losing their loved ones because of intense insecurity in Nigeria. I will appeal to them to be patient with government. Let's cooperate with government. Let's join government in this fight. When it comes to terrorism, it's not a fight against one. It's a fight against all, and we have to all come together in order to fight that. I also want to tell them to be patient. Nigerian government is making the process that is required. We are bringing out sweeping reforms. We have rejigged the security forces. We have expanded our access and purchases of military equipment. We are deepening our ties with the United States government and all other partners that will be of help. And certainly, the spirit of the Nigerian people coming together will resolve. We are surely going to put this terrorism behind us by the grace of God.
All right. Nigerian presidential spokesperson Daniel Bwala, great to talk with you.
Thank you as always.
And democratic stability must be pursued simultaneously. The conflict in Sudan has resulted in more than 40,000 dead and displaced over 12 million people. We welcome the G7's call for renewed diplomacy. However, external actors fueling the conflict must be held accountable. Similarly, right intentions in South Sudan requires continued engagement to ensure the full implementation of the revitalized peace agreement ahead of the 2026 elections. Excellencies, as we strengthen our partnership for a safer and more secure Africa, we must also confront the global governance deficit. Africa deserves full representation in global decision-making structures. It is time for Africa to occupy permanent seats on the UN Security Council with all attendant privileges, including the veto. Genuine, text-based negotiations under the intergovernmental negotiations framework must now commence. It is our hope that EU member states will support Africa's long-standing and legitimate call for reform of the United Nations. Furthermore, Nigeria firmly believes that peace and security initiatives in Africa must be African-led and carried out through legitimate platforms. We stand resolutely against the use of all private military and security companies in African conflicts, as their presence often complicates regional efforts and undermines state sovereignty. As the world is witnessing a diminishing commitment to multilateralism, the EU remains a platform of partnership and collaboration on a continent-to-continent basis, anchored on mutual respect and shared aspirations. Nigeria remains firmly committed to advancing peace, security, and democratic governance across our continent. We are prepared more than ever to work with the European Union to build a more stable, just, and prosperous world. I thank you.
We are not there. We want to deal with the EU on a pedestal of mutual interest, respect.
In terms of peace and security, how are you collaborating with the EU to tackle issues of terrorism?
Well, EU is a wonderful partner on the issue of combating illegal migration, terrorism, and banditry in the Sahel zone. But mind you, there's an incestuous relationship between economy and ecology in the Sahel zone. And we need kinetic and non-kinetic solutions to the challenges. And I believe EU is a continent that has engaged with Africa for over 500 years, understands our challenges, understands our problems, and collectively we are going to marshal resources towards addressing those issues.
Okay, thank you. Yes, here we are. That is a powerful remark made by the Vice President of Nigeria at the African Union, European Union Summit. What I understand from his remark is the issue of the presence of foreign or external private security groups, for example, Wagner. And of course, he is talking about Wagner. He didn't mention openly, but he's talking about Wagner. Why? Because we know that Wagner is present in Sahel. If you look at the map of Africa, you find that Nigeria, Niger are neighboring countries. So if Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso are the best friends of Russia, it means Russia has sent Wagner to those countries to support these countries to fight jihadists. But one thing that I want to share, why the Vice President of Nigeria not talking about the presence of Western military base in the continent of Africa? For instance, we know that we have US military base, we have France military base, we have UK military base. Why Vice President of Nigeria is only talking about Wagner, the Russians? While all of us, we know how Russia has supported these countries. Russia supported many African nations during the struggle of independence. Russia trained many of our freedom fighters. And yet today, Vice President of Nigeria is leading the script from the masters. So how can you talk about private security groups while you are leaving those who are destabilizing our continent, especially countries such as France? They have military bases here. US has military bases here. And the good thing that I love is that US has threatened Nigeria that we are going to send special force into your soil. We are going to put the boot on the ground. So Nigeria thought that maybe those who invited Wagner or Russian for support, maybe they are full. No, it's because Africa failed to protect their people. African nations, leaders like the Vice President of Nigeria are not talking about unity of this continent. If we can unite, there's no need for we Africans to invite or to hire these private groups. If we can unite, there's no need for us to have these foreign military bases. So what these US, France, UK bases are doing here in the continent of Africa. Now we have started to see even Arabs have military bases here in the continent of Africa. So I think what we lack is unity. And what I see Vice President of Nigeria is leading the script from his masters. And he's speaking on front of European Union leaders, and he think maybe he can get support. But let me tell you, these are the same people. They change shapes like amoeba, but are the same people. They came through slavery, they came through colonialism, through religions. Their mission is the same. What they change is tactics. So Nigerian President Tinubu and the Vice President, maybe they don't know, but these are the same people with the same mission. And we know countries such as Russia, as I said, supported African countries to fight for independence, for freedom. So right now there has Cold War to talk about Russia. Russia is doing that, Russia is doing that. But all in all of us, we have witnessed whom they supported us. You know, if you talk about this Western power, we know that how they behave, how they treat Africans. Sometimes they load our leaders into buses like school kids. But look, Russia, when they invite our beloved leader, Captain Ibrahim Traore, you see the respect. They send special plane, presidential plane with escort of this jet fighter, SU, something, to escort and to protect Captain Traore. That's what we want, brothers and sisters. So I think, dear lovely family, Vice President of Nigeria is leading the script of his master. But all in all, what he needs to do is to tell African leaders, let us unite, let us come together. If we can come together and unite, there's no need for we Africans to hire these private groups, to hire other people to take care of our security. So I think I've spoken the thing that I wish to speak at this time. But all in all, family, brothers and sisters, that is what the Vice President of Nigeria spoken during the the African Union, European Union summit in Rwanda, Angola. Of course, I know that the Europeans are seeking for minerals, are seeking for resources, and Nigeria is among of African countries with high deposits of oil, natural gas, and other critical minerals. So I think have given a script. They fear countries such as Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and I know, but all in all, kings and queens, ladies and gentlemen, we have to come together. The only solution for us is to come together. I've been saying this. Maybe this generation don't see the importance of unity, but we'll continue to speak, to talk about this issue. Maybe the coming generation will see the importance of unity. But without unity, we are going nowhere. Without coming together, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. This continent needs unity. Africa needs unity to prosper and to move forward. So, at that, let us not speak for too long. Maybe if you speak for too long, you spoil. Let me leave the stage. See you next time, brothers and sisters, in other video. If you're new in this platform, make sure that you subscribe to join the big family of Make Africa Great. If you have already subscribed, please make sure that you like the video and you share the message to other Africans who are here in the continent and to those who are also in the diaspora. Thank you. Have a nice time.
Thank you, Africa.